I'm Jeremy Wade, and this is a detective story with a difference. It's an investigation into the death of a river. Now, when a river starts to die, it mostly happens out of sight, beneath the surface. So how can we tell when a living river is turning into what's basically just a drain? Historically, the River Wye used to flow over clean stones and gravel. Now, the riverbed is choked with abnormal growths of algae and bacteria.
Here's a stone that is covered with algal sort of filth that can be wiped off with your finger to reveal the true colour of the stone underneath, and you can see the colour on my finger of the muck that comes off. This is the sort of the new ecology of the river. Sometimes the problem is more visible. We get these algal blooms, as they're called, which is effectively a population explosion of algae in the river in certain conditions. And when that happens, the water turns murky, and also so it kind of restricts the light getting into the river, but it also takes all the oxygen out of the river, which is really, really bad news for all of the other stuff living in the river.
This cocktail of algae has taken over from the natural water plants that used to form the base of the river's food chain. The Wye used to be famous for its rich beds of water crowfoot, but in just the last 5 years, nearly all of that has gone.
In the last few years, we've seen more algal blooms, particularly up in the upper stretches of the Wye, so it seems to be getting worse. And in extremis, if it got worse and worse and worse, ultimately the river could become a no-go area with certain types of algae growing in it, making it toxic to humans and pets. The algal blooms are happening because of phosphate. Phosphate is a natural fertiliser substance, but normally it's not found in great quantities in the river. But these days the river's full of the stuff, and as a result we're getting these algal blooms.
So where is all this phosphate coming from? The main channel of the Wye runs for about 150 miles, but the water in it comes from more than 1,500 square miles of land.
Agriculture has used phosphate and manures for hundreds of years in the Wye. We've probably reached a point now where on certain soils we've come to a saturation point, and as we learn more about the soils through data, we can possibly manage away some of this phosphate if we put our minds to it. Something I think agriculture needs to look at.
So why is there so much phosphate in the soil and in the river?
Well, part of the problem is that our environmental agencies have had their budgets slashed so dramatically over the last 10 years that they just haven't been doing the monitoring to know where the problems are, and they haven't been doing the regulatory enforcement to take action against polluters. We've also got a problem of poor planning controls, which is that we've had a proliferation of intensive livestock farming, particularly intensive chicken farming in this catchment. This is the UK chicken capital on the Wye. We've got over 20 million chickens. That's a quarter of chickens from the UK, all produced here, and I think only around 1.5% of the land. So what a concentration of one industry in one place, and that produces more manure than the land can absorb, and that ends up washing into the river. So the agencies and the councils and the environmental agencies that should have been counting those chickens just weren't counting them. They weren't doing any kind of assessment of the cumulative impact of so many birds in one small area. And we only know the numbers because volunteers have got that data. Well, this model of intensive farming, this cheap chicken, comes at a huge environmental cost. It's dumping its costs onto the environment, and we're having to pick up the tab for that in trying to fix our river system, whereas instead we could be investing our money in farming so much more sustainably in a totally different way and supporting our farmers to create good, nutritious food that doesn't trash our rivers.
The state of our rivers is just an utter disgrace. Across the nation, we're seeing ever-mounting levels of public outrage about the scandal of river pollution. And nowhere could this be more so than in the valley of the River Wye, where up and down the catchment, communities have mobilised to try and save their river. At River Action, we've instigated legal proceedings against the government and the Environment Agency, who we believe, along with Natural Resources Wales across the border, have systematically failed to protect the river from the deluge of river pollution coming from intensive agriculture. It is critical that government wake up to the scale of this environmental emergency and take action now, because if they don't, this magnificent river will die.
You can help us right now in our battle to save the Wye by signing our online petition. River Action are calling on our political representatives to commit to restoring all our rivers to health by 2030. If we reach 100,000 signatures, Parliament will have to join this conversation and finally address this urgent problem. We will deliver the petition to 10 Downing Street on the 24th of September, World Rivers Day. As things stand, we've very nearly reached our target, but time is short, so your support could make all the difference. Please click the link and add your name now. Thank you.